Ready.
All right, I have 6:30. Let's call our regular meeting to order. We'll start with the invocation and the pledge. We'll do public comments and then we'll be doing some budget before we go into our other meeting elements. Father, we praise you for this meeting and your purpose for it. We know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. That even when we've done what you have asked, the results are so much greater than we could ever have imagined. Our prayer today is that your will be done through this council. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail or fall short. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride and selfishness. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. Please keep all of our first responders and military at home and abroad close to you. We continue to say an extra prayer for our council member Kelly Matula and her family. And please bless Erica and Jennifer as they help us put this chapter to rest. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Miss Erica, do we have any public comments? Do we sign up today, or we're just going to have comments?
I didn't get any slips.
Oh, where were they? Hang on. Does Lou have a slip?
No, you're right.
Christine, obviously Lou would like
Okay, Lou,
Yep.
go ahead.
Okay. It's a very sad evening. I spent some time the other day putting some information together. Discussion here is me and Daniel McJunkin. I've known Daniel McJunkin since 2000. He was a young man, smart young man, and still is. What he can do with computers, all those things he can do. He had a kick. He had 3 guys, friends of his, and they were all together. The trio, always writing things and kind of creating some little problems. But, it was a kind of, people say, well, let it go. Wasn't anything serious, okay? But it was, okay? So it went for them. Every time he had little things. And one time we got into a situation where he became on the council. He was on the council. And Doug Sabasula was the mayor. I don't know if anybody knows Doug Sabasula. Doug Sabasula is a big man, one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet. He will help you. When he was on the council and you're talking about things and people get, he was always there talking. We never had, from the time I was with Jim as the mayor, Doug as the mayor, and I was the mayor, we never had the kind of, anywhere near the kind of nasty business they've been having in here. The nasty business, and it's all coming from Mr. McJunkin, okay? Now, in 2010 is when I gave up being the mayor. Getting older, and my wife and I wanted to do some traveling and so forth, so we said, okay, we're going to do it. Danny was, here and I were working, and he was in there, and he said, Lou, any problem, what do you think, with Jim? How Jim would feel if I'm the mayor, I try to be a mayor. I said, I don't think there'd be a problem. I said, what I think we might do is you might just, cut all that stuff you used to play with Art Meyer, Art Meyer, and that was a very good guy. So anyway, he decided not to do that. And it looked like he was fine. So I never saw him. Went for six years he went. One day I came I come in and there was a flood. Kind of bad flood, okay? Came over to help, all right? What I find when I go over there is the emergency management that we had had fallen apart like cheap trash. There was nothing there, and people helped. And the thing was jammed up. So what does he do? he pulls a guy from Western Lakes to come and not to take the people that work there. That's what he did. That's what he did, you know. And then the whole thing got a business, and that guy created some problems, and they had to push him out of there. And then who does he brings in? A gentleman who's just out of the Navy with his girlfriend, and puts him in charge. And this guy tries to set up emergency management like he had in the Navy. The thing was all messed up. And I was really a mess. But it was shortly after that, when he was getting ready, shortly after that, before he left. On Thursday nights, we had a lot of people over there, and the place where everyone sits over there down the road, and we all having dinner at night. Usually we have 24, 25 people, something like that. We're all sitting around. Some people on the council, some people are farmers, and so forth. You know. Anyway, they said, how's about coming back again? And I said, no. I was getting close to 80. And I said, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And they said, would you sit and ask? This is for me. Jim was there. Some of the people that have been in emergency management, and they said, listen to us. And I said, okay, what is it? And they said, here's what McJunkin's doing over there, the mayor. The ladies that are running over there, the way he's treating them, we've written up some things that we're going to give it to her where she could sign and go and create something. I don't know how it was. They knew and familiar with it. They were going to send him in for what he done. The other thing they said about was that he had some way of doing it. But he was not in the office. But anytime they said anything, he was listening to what they were saying. What they were saying. And work in the office. Now, what do you think if you work in an office and a guy has got some, he's not even there, and he's listening to things. And you know, he's not saying he's listening. Anyway, that's the kind of business he's been doing. That's the kind of business. He's got big contacts with people in the county all over. He's doing that. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this about him, because I've always tried to keep everything with him nice.
Lou,
About what?
we're at 3 minutes. If you could give the final comments.
That man has created something, destruction, something that this city has grown with. And it was the mayor, and it was these ladies sitting here with the work that they've done, and they're suffering for it. They're leaving. And the things all the mayors that we worked together, the things that we knew had to be done, we just didn't have the money to do it. They came along and they found out how to get the money and how to do it.
3 minutes.
And it's a lie that they were overpaying. Because some of the cities around that the money they were making, and some of them were not doing any near as hard the work that they were doing. They were getting more money than these ladies were.
Thank you.
This is a disgusting thing. And I've never had an argument with him before. I hope I never see him again, but if he wants to talk about it, I'll tell him more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy?
Here I go. I don't know if I can follow up on that. I'm reading off script because I don't want to lose my words, but Eric and Jennifer, thank you for your years of dedication, professionalism, don't make me cry, passion, honesty, and love for this community. Some of us know you volunteer your time, your money, and your husband's to help our community events be a success. We also thank you for all your hard work to the spring fling events, the trash offs, and the Christmas roundup. And we'll cheer you on wherever you go. For the council, so Texas Pride, I spoke with several residents over the last month.
in my chair at the salon where many of them talk to me, and many of them, probably 80% of people I know, have never had a problem with Texas Pride. Unfortunately, in our community, what you hear the 10% negative people. The same people that complain about everything and anything. Maybe it's because they didn't put it out on time. Maybe it's because they didn't pay their bill. I am a personal resident that they have never not picked up my recycling and never have not picked up my trash. I will remind you, one day I got slipped because I put it out too late, called the owner, and he came out in his own truck and I saw him. Secondly, all the community events we do, I was always told, transport it back to your house. I'm not transporting trash back to my house, nor should these girls have ever had to transport back to City Hall. I make one email to Kevin. If we have a community event at the Roundup, he picks it up. If we have it at the Valley Lodge Park, he picks it up. I'm not transporting maggots in a trash can from a weekend in my golf cart or my car. So those are things that we never saw before, because for those of you that didn't live here, we had another trash service and we would sit on our trash literally for 18 to 30 days. So be careful when you consider another trash company that there are true residents that don't have a problem with them. So anyway, that's my thought on Texas Pride. And my point was, it's easy to listen to all the negative people in the position you're in, the complainers. We do have many quiet neighbors in this neighborhood that sit quietly and just smile. I'm also asking that some of these items be put on next month's agenda. I would like to see, and I think many residents would, we would like for you guys to give us an update on the Flock software, where we're at. Are we going to continue that through this budget? We would also like an update from, it was probably a year and a half ago, we had a couple council members that were going to be committed to making a fencing permit through the city, so that all neighbors, that if a fence was being built, all neighbors could agree. And this is where we move forward on the fence, no obstruction on people's property. So that was going to be maybe like $100 fence permit, something that the city would oversee, make sure survey lines were proper and all neighbors could agree. So that was something I would like to add. And then where are we with DSL fiber lines coming to the city? I mean, I had to come up here, my whole system crashed this last week. Couldn't see formulas, couldn't see clients, couldn't see anything. We attempted 4 times yesterday, failed at the salon, AT&T Uverse, which is where I run my business. He asked me to relocate somewhere I could get faster DSL. I called the ladies, I said, can I come up here? I sat in the boardroom, 2 more hours, they had to transport the software from their computer to my computer to get me back up and running. I couldn't run a credit card machine. There was no sales to the city of Simonton last week for retail because I couldn't function. I was completely shut down for a week. So this is a need for DSL.
We're 3 minutes if you want to.
Okay, I'm up.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. We'll see you in Berkshire. Blessings, love. Thank y'all for your service.
Thank you.
I didn't sign up, but I think I have a right to rebut what you said about me. And I can say in the 6 years I was mayor, and the 3.5 years I was a council member, we never had any issues. I respected Blue Road so much. He mentored me, he brought me along, he encouraged me the entire time. While I was a city council member, we went through, I think, 3 city secretaries. While I was mayor, we went through 2. 2 during my tenure, and Shannon Purcell, 3. Kathy and I did Shannon Purcell, as well as Shelley Elliott. And I defy anyone in this room to come up with a shred of a discussion of an evidence of any element where I was discourteous, where I recorded somebody's conversation without their understanding or knowledge. Never would I have placed a recording device or a listening device in anybody's proximity, none of it, the City Hall notwithstanding. It is not something I would do. I let people know when I'm turning the recorder on. And I can say if somebody, this is my moment, if somebody has evidence, I would love, and I defy them to bring that forward, and I will stand accountable to that. But that would have to be an affidavit from one of these ladies that worked with me as city secretary.
And we have it.
I would love to see that. So what I can say is what I heard today was slanderous. I hope it wasn't in writing, it would be libelous. My character is not to be defamed any more than any other person that has served this community. So thank you for hearing me. And as far as emergency management goes, yeah, 2015 was terrible. It wasn't necessarily, it was just the event. First time we'd had a flood since 1994, I believe. The gentleman that quit after I left office. His house flooded and he didn't come back. So, thank you. God bless you.
Do we have any other public comment? Okay,
Yes.
hearing none. Let's go on to item 4, budget workshop, number 3. So council, this is on your orange paper. Courtney, I just left that second, he'll go in the other room and share with you.
Yeah, I don't,
That's
so
okay,
this
you're
report
fine.
is way different than the pink
Yep,
one?
we've given it to you in a different format today so that you can see the categories and what items belong in which category. Because there was questions about that last time. So this is the same line items, but as you go through it, you'll see, like this is, the very first one is a summary sheet. So you can see it says ad valorem for income, legal, professional, dues, subscriptions. And then as you go through each one, it'll tell you all the things that roll up into that category. So for example, we had some discussion last time about office and supplies and why was that number what it was. So once you get to office and supplies, it'll tell you everything that belongs in that category and what those numbers are. So we also have it in the version you saw last month, but we thought this might be easier since the questions were around which items belong in which category.
Okay, before we
So
go through,
Jennifer?
before we go through this line item, I kind of painstakingly utilized the information that you gave us last time, which seems to have drastically changed. But I kind of want to, since we don't have actual, I did it off of like what we were working with or whatnot. I kind of spent a ton of time doing it. But I came up with like a really easily legible sheet. And I also realized that, like, for those of you that were here last time, a lot of you guys weren't looking at what we were looking at. So to put some context to what I'm trying to propose, we kind of go through very quickly. I won't take much time, I promise.
So are you proposing changes to the amounts in each category?
No, what I did is it's 24 basic changes, and I can explain each and every one of them very in layman's terms. I guess that sounds terrible, but and it will still allow us to get the things that we've already proposed to be done accomplished, as well as utilize any kind of funds that instead of investing any kind of leftover funds from this year, we can actually accomplish way more in getting roads done in Valley Lodge.
Okay, so what you have here is a balanced budget based on what everybody asked for at the last workshop, with adjustments based on the certified roll that we received from the county.
Right?
So maybe it'd be easier if you go through the list of the things that you would like to address. If you want to take something out of one category and put it to roads or something like that, it might be.
So if you would just give me like 10, 15 minutes to explain it? Because I think it's very legible. Like I went ahead and did 23 current, 24 working. I went back as far as to 22, and there was a lot of them that were the same. I kind of went through, I used a lot of the resources that you had provided at the last one, and came up with some pretty feasible cuts that will not only drop it and allow us again to get more roads done.
I think
a
what
lot
she's
more
getting
roads
at,
done.
Courtney, is that the numbers have changed based on the certified tax rolls. So what you've done there is not gonna work because you don't have the certified tax rolls. We just got those on Friday. So that number has changed, that the revenue number has changed in order of which we have to use to balance the budget.
Right, and so this is just an idea. I mean, I'm obviously, like, this isn't setting gold. I worked with what we had previous to getting those numbers, and it's astonishing, like, how much money we can actually save and how many more roads we can get done in Valley Lodge by just utilizing the monies that aren't going to be spent at the end of this fiscal year. I spent a lot of time on it. I would really appreciate it if we could just go through it for like 10 seconds. It's literally, I used every number that you had given us, or I guess
Well,
that
let's
she
look
had
at it,
given us,
because the
sorry.
categories might tell us some places that we.
And I didn't have it as broken out as this, so I have some that are
That's fine.
kind of grayed.
Well, we
that
can
I
find
need
it
some
because it's still
questions.
in here.
So,
Every one of those is still
I'm
in
gonna give
here.
everybody one up here, copy. Just pass them around. The first part is the revenue, and then you'll see where I worked in the budget down here. Sorry, I should have given you all those. If you guys want some of these, if anybody in the audience is curious, come on up, I got some.
I was gonna say, be sure we need to give it to Erica and Jennifer.
Yeah.
since they're-
And again, I'm sorry, I didn't have the certified tax roll, but I did go off of that, and hand those around for me, Ken, I'd appreciate it. Those that are interested. Oh, wait, I need one. I'm like, oops, sorry.
Okay, so this first page has no reductions on it? and then-
No, the first page is all revenue. And you're gonna, that's just the current working revenue that I took.
of Ken.
Sorry.
And you have a,
I took from
you
your,
have a difference?
this was.
One for him.
Right.
That was all the past working budget, again, not actual.
I'm trying to ask you where the differences are. So on the first
Okay.
page, the only difference I see is you made this change.
All right.
I don't know if you made this change or if this is the difference.
Yes.
There's no
You're
difference.
showing a difference in the dollars under the EDC revenue.
Right. So all of this is your revenue. This is the information that you gave us. There are absolutely no changes made in revenue because I don't change that.
Okay,
So
why that's there.
this number,
So disregard that.
this number matches everything. Those were reductions that you guys had anticipated. So when you get into the general fund, very easily explained, 23 current, 24 working, y'all, the numbers that we received last time, 24 was the revisions that I proposed making, simply because of the resources that I used. Okay, so the first one was a decrease in health insurance.
She's on page 2, the section under general
Sorry,
fund, 100.
100 general fund where it says health insurance.
So you're proposing,
Okay, just 1 second. So you're proposing a reduction in health
So,
insurance?
and I promise I'll answer all your questions, and if I'm,
Well, let's just go one by
if it's
one.
not, yeah, I get it.
So
So-
the increase in health insurance that's proposed is because Jennifer didn't ever take health insurance, and we never paid for her health insurance. She's been on her husband's policy.
Right.
So our new people that come on board, we will have to pay for health insurance for
Mhm.
both of them, where we've only been paying for one. So I don't think that we could take it from 17,000 to 10, because that's $7,000 right there is what we're gonna need for the new employees.
Well, but you were also budgeting only eight when they were.
In 23, because they're the only one on health insurance.
Okay, so in 2022, you weren't on the insurance plan?
Never taken
Gotcha.
insurance.
Okay, well, hear me out, hear me
That's
out.
okay,
It'll,
that's
it'll
just the
make
first
sense. It'll make sense when I promise you. I went off of all the numbers and resources that you actually provided through TML, which is awesome, and thank you, by the way. The technology, we took that from 20 to 10, I took that from 20 to 10 because there was a lot of things that were implemented last year that we paid for, and we just kind of have the what can I say, the fees to upkeep it. So where we put the meeting and agenda software into place, I think now we're done with that larger.
that wasn't in technology.
It's listed as technology on
It
your
was, but it wasn't
checking.
budgeted in from last year's budget number. We came to council and did a mid-year budget adjustment because it wasn't previously budgeted, so we came to council and asked for that expense to be paid for. So on technology, our fund view is $7,500 a year.
Okay. I mean, again, there was a lot that were paid for, and again, this is a working budget, not an actual budget, because we don't have the actual numbers. Office supply and point of sale, we just I moved that to 2,500 because I think that's massively excessive. When I got down to the copy and printing, same type of thing. If there's, I just see the numbers being crazy. The mileage reimbursement, nobody's ever really taken that based on the mileage that I saw. I did leave $1,000 on that. Community outreach, there was just some kind of weird spending there that I noticed, but again, just dropped that one to 10. The payroll on the TML guides that you had put out, you put out at 150. You put out at 50 to 75 for one person, and then 75 to, or excuse me, 80 to 100 on the other person. So that was where I kind of came up with the lowering in
So are you gonna
payroll.
pay
So that's $175,000 plus Juul.
plus?
And there's another
Understand.
personal budget.
I understand, but that was last year's budget. This is this year's working budget, and we can always
I
adjust it.
understand, but what I'm saying is you're proposing less than we're spending today, and we're going to have to spend more money, probably, for replacing the posts that we have.
So
Just,
all I'm getting at is that the TML registers $19 to $24 an hour for the city secretary, and that's way more, so which puts us in an awesome place. So if they accept the position making $50,000, there, I realize it'll go up, but we can adjust that budget up in further years as to accommodate for cost of living and, and budget
To be
or
completely
salary
honest, if you
increases.
pull the HGAC current report, you won't find a qualified city secretary to fill her position for less than $7,500.
I pulled it off, straight off of TML, and the average payment was $19 to
No,
$24
you
an
didn't,
hour.
because the average payment is not on TML, but I can give you the HGAC book that's about this thick that has every city in the HGA, the South Texas region, and you will not fill that position. I can tell you the applications that we have gotten that are requiring $65,000 for this position have zero experience.
Okay, again, topics of conversation. And again, this is a working budget. You just said it yourself that you can go into the middle of the year and kind of move things
It is,
around.
but I think the frustrating part is what we talked about last time and the meeting before that is that you have failed to contact us and talk about this. Like, it could have saved you time and it could have saved me time. It could have saved me time if you would have just called us and said, hey, I've got some suggestions, let's work through this.
I apologize, I didn't get that opportunity before you guys quit. So I was.
We're still working.
I didn't get the budget until after you guys quit. We didn't even get this.
I'm sitting at this table right here. My last day is not till Friday. I worked
And we didn't
I
refund
worked this
until the 11th, and we had a budget meeting on June 25th.
I understood, and that is what took me into this level of research so that I knew and educated myself on what goes on each line item. That's when she sat and gave us the breakout. I looked through the breakout, and I went through it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what that's for.
But you keep saying we, so I'm wondering who is fueling this with you.
It was, my 10-year-olds, literally like, hey, let's check out some math. Because mama didn't understand it, so it was my job.
Now we have 10-year-olds running the city.
I think the frustration is that if you could have called and said them, so you realize that the next meeting you have to accept the proposed budget.
Understood.
We need to
Okay,
move
so-
on.
So I guess if you called prior to this, excuse me,
Excuse me.
no, excuse me. If we could have had those, I mean, we could go through this, it's not that, it's just that you could have also called us, Courtney, and gone through, you could come and sat up here with us with Jennifer and gone through the numbers with her, when you had it written out. I mean, and then we would have come in here with with real numbers, because if you didn't notice, the working revenue came down almost $60,000.
I understand that, but the number you gave us last time was $169,000 difference. So
But
that's
that's
why I just sat down and went through the working budget with the information that you gave us.
Okay.
It's simple suggestions. I realize that you can always change these things, and it's a suggestion, but it's also an example of how you can, they don't have to be, this is not set in stone. Clearly, that's why we're having the discussion.
Correct.
However, this was my mentality. I sit down and I'm like, okay, well, do we really need to be spending, I don't know, $10,000 on subscriptions? No, that's crazy. Like, we've got to be able to find some way to lower that money. Just because we can spend it doesn't mean we have to spend it.
Well, that's correct, but then you have to find somewhere else to spend it. Because the job of the city is not to save money, it is to spend it on your citizens and helping your citizens.
I am so glad you said that, because we currently have over $600,000 sitting in a working account that's not spent, and we have 2 months left in the fiscal year. That's my point. That's my point.
Great, but you also have to understand that we have to keep a surplus for floods.
I understand.
Okay.
That's all, none of the emergency management changes.
Okay.
None of that changes.
Well, I'm
It's
talking about reserves,
simply in the top that you're gonna see the majority of the change. And then in miscellaneous, I feel like if you can't figure out what you're spending it on, it doesn't belong in the miscellaneous catalog. That, to me, is a super red flag. I did leave some there. I did leave some there.
There was a note that some of the miscellaneous columns on some of you were because of the conversion as well.
But you're still putting it in the budget though, right?
I really wish you would take the time to learn about the municipal budget. And if you don't want to learn it from us, then go to Fulshire, because Jack Harper will take all the time of his day to explain it to you.
I get it.
And other cities will explain it to you. These are not red flags. Like, you're making assumptions about things that are just not factual and not true, but you're failing, again, you are failing to pick up the phone and call the staff that do this every day. I mean, we have over 20 years of, I have almost 20 years myself, and someone who's been sitting in a council position for 3 months is trying to tell me, like, that I've done the budget wrong.
I'm not trying to tell you you did it wrong, Jennifer. If that's sensitive to you, I apologize. But I'm not,
It's
did I
absolutely
say
not
that?
sensitive. I'll go toe to toe with you on this. It is not sensitive to me because I've made a significant amount of money for this city because we have
You have.
fiscally been responsible in the way that we budget. But this child's play that continues to go on every single council, it doesn't bother me. I'm going to a city that is excited to have me come and values me. It's hurting you. Every single one of you who's
and us.
sitting up
Yes,
here
and us.
for council, it's hurting the city. It's hurting the council. This childish behavior, are you for? Because that's how you're acting. And let me tell you something,
Madam,
just to put it out on the video.
I'm gonna ask you to chill.
Didn't do this.
No, ma'am.
Daniel
I
did that.
most
I guarantee
certainly
you
did.
Daniel did this.
Daniel did this because
I most
Daniel
certainly
written
did
all
this.
over it from the other spreadsheets that he's submitted.
Yes, we've seen it before.
The 8 to 9 hours that I spend on this Excel spreadsheet is on 100% my computer.
I doubt
I
that,
did.
but I'll let you have that.
And unfortunately, I'm real sorry, but you need to understand something too. Like, I'm an elected city official. You don't, the staff doesn't get to talk to me like that. Seriously?
First of all, Courtney, let me clarify.
You're not following your own decorum or her decorum.
I have been very, very professional, but this jargon, like, it's getting childish and it's taking up a lot of time. It's taking up the production of the city. Because one, you have failed to call and figure out how the city, where do we bank? Who's our road and bridge commissioner? Who do you call when there's a flood? Do you know any of these answers? The answer is no, because you haven't called the city to find out.
I don't have to call the city to find out. I can find that out on my own. It's Wallace State Bank.
No, it's not Wallace State Bank.
That's what you have on your sheet right here.
That's our credit card. That's not, that is, and that is the savings.
So you don't know, you don't have,
So, yeah, we have a
your
little
own
more
quarterly
than
financial.
We don't have
the Wallace State
Yep,
Bank.
Okay,
apparently.
folks.
Definitely wore the right shirt for the meeting.
I understand that you have a point that you've been working on the budget. Let's bring this back to the budget, please. Let's go through the changes that have been made already, because the amount of revenue and the tax roll is different than our last workshop, now that we've received a certified tax roll. And then we can address some of the categories that you're talking about for me to see if
No, you're
some of
good.
those things make sense here, and let's get this as close to matching, and council can say which way they'd like to go on each item, so that we can then reconcile one more time if that's needed, so that we'll be close as we could possibly get to our final budget for our next meeting. Okay? The first page is a summary. Jennifer, I'm going to let you, if you wouldn't mind, give us the, we're going to talk about the tax roll as an item in a few minutes, but it's valid now. Do you want to give the?
Sure. So the only thing that significantly changed, that will change just the flow of everything in here, is under ad valorem. That is that's our property taxes from the county. So the appraisal district sent me the certified tax rolls on Friday, and as I alluded to in the budget meeting, there's usually not very much difference between the preliminary tax rolls and the certified tax rolls. There is a $20 million difference this year. I don't know why. We have nothing to do with that. It's the appraisal district. I have left several messages with the appraisal district today. I'm waiting on a call back. Our preliminary appraisal estimate was 134 million. Our certified appraisal roll was 114 million, so that's a significant swing. Again, trying to figure out why there is a $20 million deficit. Was there $20 million worth of property that was taken off the roll? Did somebody convert $20 million of property into ag exempt? The likelihood of that is no, but we don't know. It could be a mistake, possibly. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt of figuring out why there is such a difference here. So, and going with the suggestion of Mr. Turner to lower the tax rate as much as we can, I played with two different numbers, a tax rate of 37 cents, a tax rate of 39. The county recommends in our truth in taxation formulation that our no new revenue rate based on our certified rolls is going to be 39 cents. That's still a 5.2 reduction, 5.2 cent reduction in taxes, but it does change the working amount from $999,000 of ad valorem income or levy to $447,195 in levy. So I just went with the number that the county has provided for our no new revenue rate, which is 39 cents. It's .39037, which that is a reduction from .441 of last year. And that gives us an ad valorem revenue of $447,000. So essentially when you're building the budget, that's one of the key levy numbers that I have to back in and work out of. So with that, that gives our city a total annual revenue of $991,078. So that was a difference from the workshop because we used that $499,000. So I had to go in and make some adjustments and make some reductions there, of which I did. So a lot of those were just kind of auxiliary items, you know, office supplies, things like that, you know, reduce those down. And for some reason, office supplies have gone up significantly in the past years. They've gone up almost 60%, especially printer paper. When we have to buy it by the case, it's gone up a lot, but I guess y'all can, Lori's very familiar with, we can come back and do a mid-year adjustment if you're outside of that. So just to start from that, I mean, that's the 39-cent tax rate. That's a reduction from the 44. I mean, y'all can decide from there where you want to go, but that's the number that we had to use to begin with to back out of.
I have a question for Courtney. What was on your budget, what tax rate did you get to?
Right between 27.5 and 26.5. And accomplishing $600,000 worth of road work within that watch. Close.
I like hearing that. Much better. We can get it to that.
So your proposed savings on your last page is $200,000, right?
Oh yeah, you flipped it, sorry. So, but that $200,000 difference was between your old numbers. Previous budget numbers on the pink sheets that you had given us.
Right, I'm just saying in general, you were proposing $200,000 in savings.
We're
And you're
proposing the
thinking-
spend be $630. So that savings.
Right,
number
so
is
you're going
inaccurate.
from 831 to 631, which would be $200,000.
Correct, but she's saying now we're at
I
990.
know, I'm just asking for the moment. So your proposal was to cut $200,000, but drop the tax rate 10 cents.
Ish.
She's
Right.
saying,
You
No,
say
27. 27, it's between
And we were
27 and a
talking
half.
about 37, so that we had done, right?
Correct.
Am I saying it wrong? No, I don't. Go ahead, Jennifer, Eric, I feel like
I mean, it's up to council to have the, you know, to have your conversations. That's the information that I can provide. And if you have questions, I can definitely ask those. But I did notice on here, Courtney, that you had proposed reducing engineering fees.
Where is that?
Public Works.
Under Public Works.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the comprehensive plan, we have a giant zoning project that requires a significant amount of engineering fees.
Well, at the last budget meeting, you guys had said y'all had put that into the contractual fees as well as the attorney's fees.
Attorney doesn't do zoning, engineering does zoning. There is some legal work that has to be done for it to be approved into zoning, but an engineer is what does the zoning. They have to do all of the GIS overlay, they have to do the engineering for that, they have to do kind of like the replatting for commercial, residential, you know, dual zone.
So, and again, it's proposed.
Just do mid-year.
It's not something that can't change, but it is significantly less than 39 cents for the tax as well. So it's just a proposal.
I'm curious as to where you came up with your numbers. Did you just
Straight
grabbed it
from-
out of the air? No. Your proposed savings.
It's a formula in an Excel spreadsheet.
What's the formula?
This minus the change.
I'm well aware of that.
Okay. And I don't have the formula off the
You're
top of my
coming
head.
up with a revised number. Where are you getting that? You're just picking it out of the air? Oh, I think it should be this today?
No, I went through these sheets here that we were previously provided, so again, the numbers are a little off. And I went through these sheets here that explain exactly what comes out of this particular category and this particular category, and just decided kind of, hey, I'm gonna throw this number out there, see what we can do away with, see what we can come up with. I compared the most recent quarterly financials to that.
So you did just grab it out?
No, not at all. I went through the checkbooks and the whole 9 yards to see like what we were actually spending on, or the one that I have, the month that I have, to see like what we're actually spending on AT&T, what we're actually spending on certain things like that per month. And estimated those numbers. And I actually, on the one in technology where y'all were way off, like on the AT&T bill, we were spending like $1,000 a month, or a little over $1,000 a month, and we had only projected, I think we had only projected like $650 a month. So I actually kind of changed all of that.
Okay. It seems like the best way to try and reconcile these two things together is let's go through it together and see if we can pick out the items and where you have them, where they belong in your sheet and where they are in the budget, and address them, like one at a time. So the first one on your list is health insurance.
Agreed. And
Under
it's-
general fund, and for us, that would be page 2.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
Go to it faster than I do, Jennifer, tell me.
Do what?
Okay, that is under
It's gonna be under
5002. These are numbered, that would be page number 8 of the orange. Liability insurance and health insurance, which you have both on there. You didn't propose any change to liability, but
No,
you,
because that's the TM.
but you
can't
you
change that.
proposed changing the health insurance from 17,638 to 8,800, so it's pretty much a 50% reduction, which is exactly the amount we increased it in order to pay for the insurance that will be required for our second person. And that'll be new to our budget this year because we haven't ever paid for Jennifer's insurance. So the $8,800 for 2023 is what it's cost us to pay only for Erica's, and we'll have to pay a similar amount somewhere in that neighborhood. That's why we use the estimator tool. And so I don't see where we can cut health insurance. We probably should take that one off the list if council agrees. Since we've already said in our previous meeting, we authorized the expense to pay an interim person and then the budget for a permanent person that would include insurance for both of them.
So my mentality when I did this, just so you know, is not that it's obviously set in stone, it's a working budget.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But
Let's
that's
work
what I'm
through it
saying,
right
we
now.
can always go back and up that through, like, once we find that permanent person.
But that's not how budget
budget works.
We know the expenses absolutely are coming.
I don't think she's ever done
No,
that.
you can make a major adjustment if something unusual happens, there's a change, but you don't want to set up your budget to not have the funding for things you know are coming. And we are going to be paying this person as soon as next week when we have a temporary person here. Because we'll be paying for their insurance through the third party that's coming in, so the expense will be there, starting as soon as we have an interim person and going forward. So it's not good practice to take that money out of the budget when we know that expense for sure is coming.
Okay?
The permits and license, why do we not have Anthony's on there for?
Because Anthony's is in a period now where they pay they pay their permit every 3 years. No, every 2 years, sorry.
Oh.
It's a 2-year permit now. So the first couple of years that they pull that permit from the state is annual, and then this year they paid it and it goes to every 2 years.
Okay. The next item on Courtney's list is technology, to cut from $20,000 to $10,000, and that's on line 5030.
That's gonna be under office and supplies, page 11.
Am I reading it wrong, Jennifer, I've seen that,
It's the very
I'm
first
sure
one.
I'm on the right.
No, it's on the very
here.
first line of page of the very top.
Okay. And will you remind us what's actually in that technology line item?
Yeah, it's all of our software, so we have, technology is all of our software programs. So going forward, our Archive Social, Archive Social, Civic Plus, Easy Task, which is our website. We have FundView, which is our finance software. We now have General Code, which are our meeting code. We have Granicus, which is our meeting software. Then we have all of our Microsoft Office products that are the professional enterprise products that we get from Impress Computers. That's what makes up, and our AT&T, so like your cell phone stuff, that's what all makes up technology. So the way software works, and I think Burns, you were in this business for a while, the way that this works, that these softwares work, is you have to pay for the software up front, then you have to pay an annual hosting fee every year after that. So while we did pay for Granicus last year for it to be created and built and set up, we still have to pay an annual hosting fee of $2,500 every single year for that program, that software to be hosted and constantly updated every single night. Okay, 3,000.
So on your sheet, on your sheet, or on my sheet, I should say, on that particular line item, you'll notice that that's only in the general fund. This page shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line items worth of technology. This line that I am reducing to 10 is the top. So that one is the one that I found on the other pink sheets that was responsible for things like the not upfront, the ones that we spent and paid for, like she just explained, the ones that we have to pay the hosting fee for, but the hosting fees would bring it back down to about 10 on that particular line item. On the other ones on technologies, I don't change it as much.
Oh, I think
So
you
that makes
cut
sense.
it, is what I think you did. On some of them, I thought there were some that was cut.
Public safety is not
Maybe they're not, maybe I overlooked that. I thought I saw where you cut that.
On public safety, it's cut.
Okay, so that's the, public safety, that's the block cameras.
So I guess what I'm asking is what sort of reference goes with cutting that line item for the software and all the things we just talked about
The
by
reference,
50%?
well, the reference was that we paid for, upfront, we paid, I think, 8 or close to 8 anyway, for one of the softwares, and then we will now have a hosting fee. And we paid another, I think, $3,400 for one of the other softwares, and now we'll have that hosting fee. So we won't have that initial bump to where we have, that they're in place now, right? We got them in place, we got them kind of trying to actively work and set up and all that good stuff. And now we're at kind of maintenance level, I guess is the best way to explain that. On that particular one, the 20 grand.
public safety technology.
Block.
What? Flock?
Flock cameras.
At $14,000 is for block.
I thought there wasn't any cost with flock.
Currently, there's none.
Is that something that we decided on? There's gonna be permanent?
It was decided.
Yes.
A long time ago, it was just taken off.
So the only reason I took that one out is because of the fact that it's currently not being paid for. So we can always add it in when it is ready, because I know Jennifer said they had dropped the ball and like they've had a hard time getting a hold of them and all that good stuff. I'm not opposed to working it back in. I'm just saying if we don't need it, let's put it somewhere else.
I think the problem is that same thing we were talking about a minute ago. If you know something is coming, it's not good practice to not budget for it. So we have a contract with them, a signed contract. So as soon as we can clear this final hurdle with the DPS, they're going to move the cameras, the free cameras out of Valley Lodge, whether they reuse them or put new ones, I don't know, and they'll put the permanent cameras, and that's when our obligation to pay start paying for it starts. So that could be next week, or it could be in 4 months.
Understood.
So
How many years have we budgeted for?
this is the second year.
So
Yeah.
we would have 28,000?
budgeted for?
Do we know? how
So
much
we
it's gonna
would have had it's $14,000 agreement. You're right, we didn't spend that money. Well, if we don't spend it by the end of this fiscal year, we will not have spent that money. And then it would be in reserves. And that could be, if you want to do a fund transfer to increase the amount of money you spend on roads, if you want to do some other big project,
Just seems
that
like we
14,000 would be in reserves.
Pull it out what we budgeted last year for it, if we get the building efficient. Right?
We won't know until the end of this year if that bill's going to come in and has to be paid in this year. I mean, it's something you certainly could cancel if you don't want to do it. But again, we just want to make sure that we don't start taking things out that we know for sure are coming.
I was just
Because,
thinking if it was already budgeted last year and we didn't use it, that it would be already there. So why would we budget another 14,000 for that particular thing?
just because it's a new budget year, you want to be sure to account for it. And if you want to spend that money for that or something else, then the council will decide if there's money that's unspent. Am I describing it wrong?
No,
Erica?
you're describing it correct.
Okay, because I very well could be. That's why we have people that are proficient and expert in this and not just me.
Lori, can I bring a tissue to Faith? Her pen is leaking and she's got ink on her face. I'm sorry. Yes, you have it on your nose and your neck. Your pen is leaking really bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, I just saw your turn, sorry.
I don't know if the.
I thought she had surgery.
It's on the other
It's
side.
on this side,
Down.
this side,
Down here.
And underneath your glasses.
under here. I thought you had surgery.
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't want you to
just
do
do
that anymore. Sorry.
Up on your nose. Up on your nose, up top, on the side of the nose.
Do any of the other council members have a question? I'm sorry I'm taking us backwards, but we need to stay with these items if we can.
Spotted lamb thing.
About the proposed reduction of technology under the general fund that we've just talked about with all of the subscriptions and archive social, and those are the things that belong in that bucket. Do any other council members have questions or comments about that? Okay. Office supply and point of sale, the very next item on that same page. You are proposing cutting $2,500 out of an $8,000 budget line. Is that for specific items or?
It was just all the items that were listed in that category, because I think most of them, and it could be just because we were rolling everything over and the confusion that you just mentioned, Julie, but a lot of those things were going into a miscellaneous category versus the, you know, the ones that they should have been going to, I guess, and it made it very confusing on the office supplies, because on the one sheet that we had, it said office supplies was consistent of internet and things like that, and then this one just explains it all completely differently. So it's all separate.
I might also be thinking of the line item, the category for office and supplies,
Correct.
and that's different than
Correct.
the line item
Exactly.
of office.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at. So that was the reason for the reduction in there. Again, all of this is fluid. It's a simple suggestion and an idea of where we could save some money,
So if we
exactly.
don't have a specific, this is how I got the $2,500, I don't know how to support or
I got the
change that.
$2,500 because I feel like that's quite a bit on like paper and office supplies and things like that.
That's for a year. I mean,
Yeah,
That's a
binders.
whole lot of paper.
Yeah,
And then
I
when the
mean-
copying and printing comes out of a whole nother
Look at all
one.
these binders sitting up here.
Because
How
we have a
thick they are.
printer.
because we have a copy machine.
We have a copy
Right,
machine
yeah.
that we have to
Service it.
lease and then pay for ink and printing.
Servicing.
Again, simple suggestions. The mileage was never used, so I reduced that to 1,000 if you're going down the list.
Okay, let's let the council talk about it
Sorry.
as we go.
I can speak to the mileage, like, I mean, it's in our contract that we reimburse the city for mileage, but we've been very gracious that we haven't done that. I'm not gonna say that the next person isn't going to, because the city does not offer their city administrator or city secretary a car allowance, which most cities do offer.
Okay.
Well, maybe if we need to adjust it again, if we need to adjust that later, once we have new staff.
Again, the
But
purpose
that's
of a
really
budget
not
is
how
to
it
plan for it.
Yeah, municipal budgeting doesn't work that way.
But in the years
can't
past,
get
or at least the information that I could find, in the years past, none of these monies have been paid out.
But
We just
maybe-
end up with this overage of unspent money.
The only thing I will say about like mileage specifically, like your interim person, like that's part of the contract with them is like to, so it might be higher than normal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, I'm not saying that 1,000 is a bad number, but I'm saying like maybe, I mean, and you can always go in and change it. I just think 1,000 is low. And you don't know that somebody else is going to come in and say, I'm going to charge you for every mile I go to the post office, because I will tell you our former city administrator charged for every mile she drove back and forth every day. So, you know, it's just something to consider.
Again, same
So
thing. just an
maybe a cut, a change or proposal that's less than 75% reduction.
So I just want to kind of bring something and kind of put it into context. And we brought this up to at very extensive length last year. In 2019, when the state
I'm sorry,
changed.
Jennifer, just one second.
Sorry, Jennifer.
No, it's okay. Do you have a question? Okay.
No, we were.
Okay, in 2019, when the state changed the House Bill 7, which capped the tax rate revenue capture, the levy that cities could get, it previously was 8%. They changed it to 3.5%. It was detrimental to cities across the state. There were several cities that actually had to file for bankruptcy because the city could not suffice on the 3.5% tax cap. With rising appraisal cost, increased cost, just across the board, it was a struggle. We talked about this at length last year, that there was a hyperbole of a situation. There was a worst-case scenario that could happen to cities that we have seen happen to cities in Fort Bend County, and we've seen happen to cities, some of our neighboring cities in Sealy and Austin County, to where you had some people who, we want to keep the tax rate low, we want to keep the tax rate low. We've been living in an artificial bubble of appraisal values versus market values. So this microcosmic thing that could happen is that the appraisal values, the prelims are super high, the certified come in a lot lower than those, and then you're presented with a tax rate to sustain your tax rate from the previous year, and what happens is you end up not being able to fund your budget on basic, on you know, basic functions. So if we take our appraised value this year, and I bring that up because last year it happened to the city of Sealy. It happened to the city of Sealy. Austin County came in very late with their numbers. They came in and they made a huge amount of cuts in their budget, and they still weren't able to sustain basic services. So they had to cut dispatch. They had to cut city admin in the office. I mean, it was a substantial amount of cuts. But if you take 114,548,552 times your 27, you're revenuing $309,000. That barely covers your office personnel. So you just, I mean, everybody, I don't think anybody here wants a high tax rate. Like, we get that. But we're in a day and age to where we have specific requirements, not only from like the state and federal government, but just obligations that we have to our residents. That is not a sustainable tax rate. Like, and not for a city that is right in the middle of growth pressures, of in between some of like the highest traffic areas and fastest growing areas in Fort Bend County. So I urge you to look at this objectively. Like, yes, budgets can be changed, but you can't go into an annual budget and say, well, we haven't used that yet, let's cut it, and then you cut everything down just to lower your tax rate to come back 6 months later and realize we don't have that flow of revenue coming in and we can't sustain it. Because the decision you make today, or whatever you pass this budget, it's not just for this year. That tax rate becomes, you have to be able to sustain that for the next 5, 6, 7 years of where that tax rate floats in there. Like, when we did the numbers last year to raise the tax rate, technically, our tax rate needs to be somewhere in the middle, 35, 37, somewhere. That's where I think it needs to sit, like live. It would have taken us 13 years to get from 21 cents up to 35 cents. If the real estate market and the appraisal market cooperated with us 100%, we all know that doesn't happen. But I think that we're seeing in what we've gotten from our certified rolls, that worst case scenario, like we're living that right now. These appraisal numbers have come in lower than our preliminaries because we're living in a little bit of a fictitious real estate market out there right now. And going into next year where interest rates are high and the market isn't moving like it has the last 2 years, I caution you to go in and just completely, like drastically cut down to a tax rate that the city cannot sustain.
You don't have questions about that?
Get it down, we're gonna have to lower something.
Well, maybe we need to think about it at the way Jennifer just described it. If you take, let's say the goal is 27 cents, it's not sustainable. Are you looking for, if we think that our proposed rate is 39, are you looking for 2 more cents? Are you looking for, is that the way you want to do it? I mean, the council has to say, is the point just let's slash?
My rate's way lower than that. Sorry.
The mentality behind this sheet,
Well, sure, because I mean, we're here to approve the preliminary
Nobody's
budget.
gonna like this, except maybe, apparently some people will because of what happened in the election. But I wrote this out so I don't stumble. I looked at the tax rates and the values, property values, all this, all your tax, where you get your taxes from for the last several years. 2022 current, when you looked at your budget that you guys looked at last year, the 2022 current ad valorem taxes were $209,754. That's what they would have been. Okay, if you had
At the previous tax rate.
Yes. The no new revenue rate for 2022-23 was 17.4 cents. Okay. The city council at that time voted to raise the tax rate to 44.6. Ostensibly to get money for things we think might happen, including a road that was going to cost us $3 million. Okay, which my understanding is that is not the case. I'll continue. The tax rates from 2013 through 2021 were between 22 cents and 26 cents a hundred for all those years. The net taxable value for 23-24 is, as y'all said, $115,548,552. That's the official.
Yes, 114, 548, 552.
552. If you multiply that number by 20 cents a hundred, you get 229,097, which is 20,000 more than the 2022-23 taxes would have been if you'd have stuck by the no new revenue rate. The city collected $290,285 more ad valorem tax in 2022-23 than the $209,000 figure. And another thing, the city has over $3 million in reserves. Okay? So we had money in the bank. Now, and I know y'all think I'm all wet. I don't care. I'm on the same piece.
I asked you to.
It's like a savings account that the citizens are contributing to in case we might have a problem. Okay? That doesn't fly with me. Sorry, it just doesn't. So we collected, in my opinion, way more tax. Not only did we go up on the tax rate, but our property values, as everyone knows, went up astronomically. Okay. And we haven't spent the money, close to the money that we collected. So that goes, I guess that goes in reserves now. So here's my deal. Here's what I think. I'm proposing to reduce the ad valorem tax for 23-24 to 20 cents a hundred in order to return some of that city tax money to the citizens of Simonton. We all paid a bunch more last year than we've been paying every year. I don't think we need to have a huge savings account. I understand things are going to happen. I understand that there may be another flood and we have to take care of that. But we have money in the bank for that. And it's not like we're not going to collect any taxes this year. But I don't see a 30, and I'm sorry to disagree with you, but I don't see a 37 cents. I don't see it. So that's, y'all asked me? That's
No,
my.
I think that's fair. I mean, you can certainly ask that, but I think just thinking realistically, like with that mindset, and I appreciate you for being respectful, like in describing that. I think the tough decision now is that if you want that tax rate to live in those low 20s, then I think council needs to eliminate my position and needs to look at what that city secretary position is going to do. But I think that's a decision that council needs to make. I think the easiest and quickest cut to that is to eliminate staff.
We've had your position all these years with those other taxes.
No, not really. Like my position has, since I've been here, has been drastically different than in the past. So Shelley, who was there before me, really, there was a title change, but she really acted more in the capacity of like a city secretary. But even what Erica has done since she's been here has been a lot more than what she performed as a city secretary. So I know that I understand that some of y'all who are used to before we came in, having a part-time city secretary, if that's what you want, then go back to that.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
No, I'm just saying, that's what I'm saying.
Last year is the first year we deviated from the low 20s. That's my point.
So
It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Right. So last year, a couple of things. I'm trying to make notes while you're talking.
Sure.
I'm not trying to interrupt.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go that fast.
That's okay. So last year, there were 3 or 4 elements that the previous council used to make the decision to go ahead and move up to the 44-cent tax rate. One of them was, and one of the biggest things was, the comprehensive plan. It's going to cost $200,000. They've dedicated that money to be for that, not to go in reserve and hang around. The comprehensive plan is underway and we're paying it monthly according to how much they accomplish.
Yeah.
Great, so there's $200,000 of that, we'll call it $275,000 increase, right? If we do 20-cent tax rate, according to your math a minute ago, that generates $225,000 for our total ad valorem revenue. 229, sorry, I read it wrong. Our salaries for 3 people almost would take every penny of that. So that everything else.
But we have other income.
We do.
Okay.
I'm just for a frame of reference.
Go.
So if we're going to cut $225,000, are we canceling doing zoning after we get the comprehensive plan done? Are we going to cancel that? Are we going to keep that? Are we going to stop going out for grant money? Because it takes time, energy, and expertise to go after that. I'm working full-time. I'm a volunteer mayor, just like your volunteer council members. Julie and I are not going to pick this up all by ourselves and be able to maintain any of these things other than, I guess, maintaining the bank account and having part-time window coverage for people who want to apply for a permit. So if you want to make a cut this drastic, it would have to really involve cuts in how this city is going to operate in the future. Are we going to continue to do these projects that help us prepare for growth that's coming, or are we just going to let it happen?
I think the answer is yes to that. And what I did, and when I was looking through these, the numbers did not just come out of the air, I promise. When I was going through this, we have like emergency management, okay? Just that one fund, in the past 4 years that I was able to go back through, we have not utilized any of that money. It's been reinvested at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, and I get it, we're building it up so that we have it when we need it, all that good stuff. But if we've got all of these reserves and we never use it, A city is not meant to be profitable. We're
That's
not meant
true.
to be reaching
That's
into
true.
somebody else's pockets and taking that money and just saying, hey, well, we might need it down the road.
Amen.
That's just me.
You're
But-
not wrong about that.
So
But let's be
that was
smart
the mentality
about-
behind this. I didn't change anything in the emergency because clearly that is not the goal by any means. I didn't change any of that. I made minuscule changes to the attorney's fees. You had said we weren't paying him enough. We didn't really budget him enough. I noticed that there were some bills in 1 month that were significantly higher, not because of me. Then I left the $15,000 for zoning in that as far as contracts is concerned. The public safety, I had a couple of questions on that because you have like a capital improvement for public safety, and then that was the only change I made there besides the flock, because we're not paying it. So I don't feel like if we're not gonna pay that, I mean, we've been paying for that for 2 years. The residents have been paying that for 2 years. That's $28,000 that we just took out of their pockets and we're just clinging on to it. And Jennifer said they done dropped the ball, like she can't get a hold of anybody and everything else with flocks. So it's like, do we keep it in the budget or do we look at it again when they are ready? That was my mentality. Simply to come across a happier medium than a nickel. That's it. It's the only reason I did it. And trust me, it took me a long time.
So your $600,000 in roads, is that coming from reserves? Where's that coming from?
I'm proposing that we spend the reserves from this year, or what is left at the end of the fiscal year, on what remaining roads. And I also had questions on that too, because I know the
But if you
engineer.
look at your road repair major, you're only allowing $5,000.
So what I did was I took the main.
Okay, if you don't mind, just 1 second. I know that we're back on your list, but we're not through talking about burns for just 1 second.
Okay,
if you
cool,
don't mind.
sorry.
Sorry.
Well, I'm not, then I have more questions.
I'm gonna try one more time and then I'll shut up. I'm not telling you I'm really not telling you to cut anything. Certainly not, what you're doing. I'm gonna say again what I said. The tax rate was in the low 20s up until last year. Y'all have been working here longer than that.
Sure, yeah.
And paying your salaries and running the city, okay? All of a sudden, last year, we decided to go up 143% on the tax rate, okay? Which brought in a bunch more money. Now, what I want to do, because you got all that extra money last year, that's good, that's fine, that happened. Now I want to go back to where we were this year. But because it will help the people of Simonton now pay their taxes. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to cut a bunch of stuff. I certainly don't want to, I'm very much for zoning. Okay, I'm not, I didn't say that. You did.
I didn't even put it in your
I'm not
mouth, I'm just
against
saying.
it.
If
I
you're
want
gonna
to
cut.
do what we need to do.
Yeah.
Take it out of the money we've got in the bank and go ahead and let's collect the taxes. If you want to argue with me and say 21 cents or 20, I'm like, that's the number I came up with that I thought would work and be fair. And I'm not a city expert. I do have a math degree, so I do know how to do numbers. That's what I think. Okay, that's my position. I am not telling you to cut, a bunch of stuff. I just want to make that
So
clear.
would you propose, just theoretically,
Yeah.
would you propose then that the things that we need, the projects that are coming up, like Courtney, are you proposing that we are spending reserves for that?
That's what
And
I'm
we'll cut
proposing, yes. That part of the money we have sitting in the bank.
How much of what we're calling reserves, how much of that is grant money?
Grant money doesn't reflect.
It's not in that same.
So Laura, you said the one thing with the 44% increase, or the 0.44, you said the zoning, and then you were gonna say 2 other big things for that increase when the council made the decision. Do you remember?
We talked about the intersection project.
Right.
Which would, until there is a signed agreement.
Yes.
That says that that's completely funded with no contribution for Simonton, we have to account for
Right.
what would our portion of that
Intersection.
responsibility be, financial
Lori,
responsibility.
I do have a correction. On the form, we do have an account called grants account, and there is some money in there right now, but that is restricted funds. It's already been allocated. That is,
That was really my point, is how much of that is
I apologize.
restricted.
That was our ARPA money, and it's restricted, meaning it's already been allocated. We can't spend it for anything outside of those restrictions. But it's not a significant. Yeah, 230.
So the zoning and the intersection, and then the
Right,
rest
so
of it.
when I gave a number last year, that we could have million or 2 million or whatever, I don't have those numbers in front of me. That's because that's the estimate that was given to us. We have not received anything that says it is official and Simonton has no obligation. So having that money in reserves, important to have if we can get that intersection moving ahead or when they decide that it's time. We don't have to fund the entire thing in day one, but we have reserves so that if they called us and said, you're up in 6 months, your contribution will start to be due, the city would be in position to do it. We don't carry any debt obligation, and we haven't ever had any debt. That's the kind of thing that you could issue debt if you wanted to. If we have the reserves and we know this project is coming, that's where the thought process was for the council. And I don't remember the third thing off the top of my head because we've kind of been all over the board. It'll probably come back to me in a minute. And then Jennifer, of course, explained a few minutes ago about catching up from being at such a low tax rate for such a long time while the market is doing well, and how that allows you then to fund the things that you're working on, like the comprehensive plan.
So one of the things that let me say, to your point, Burns, is developing a capital outlay program. We didn't have a capital outlay program before I got here. And that was one of the things that we created was a capital outlay program identifying roads, drainage, all these things. And so my time equity goes into going out and getting grants and being the grant administrator for that and compiling these capital outlay projects, whether it be drainage, road, mobility. They vary, obligations vary. But we have been very smart in how we have invested our money so that our money, when we're not spending it, has worked for us so that we can fund those capital outlay projects at the end of the year. We did a 10-year drainage project that had been on the table since 1997. 10 years worth of work we did in a year and 4 months because we were smart with our grant money and we used some of the money that we had invested smartly to build up this capital outlay program. So yes, the money in the reserves can be used for a capital outlay project. I mean, that's what it's there for. But as we talked about in the last budget meeting, $125,000 got like 0.4 mile, like a quarter of a mile in roads. So you have to look at that global picture and see what that looks like and says, okay, if we have, how many miles is it? 16. If we have 16 miles of roads, and we're trying to get X amount done a year, how long until those reserves run out? And do we have any programs set up in our budget to replenish those reserves back in? And so I'm all for using, and I brought that up at the budget meeting. Hey guys, if y'all want to pull some money from reserves and cover some more roads, like let's do it because there's a line item, transfer from reserves. I can plug that money in there and we can allocate that. But on the back end of that, you need to have a program of how to build that money back up as you're spending it. I mean, I tell people, municipal budgets are not like personal budgets, but this is the one aspect that I say is like a personal budget. If you send your savings, you develop a program to fill that savings back up so your buckets are constantly full. You don't want to have a dry bucket. So if that's the direction y'all want to go in, let me know. I can definitely make those changes, but we need to think of some sort of program, however the tax rate fluctuates, to kind of backfill those capital outlay programs in your reserves. Because the worst thing is you don't want to be left depleting your reserves and not have anything left in it.
Do we also not talk about, isn't there like $1 million plus grant
Yes.
coming for the roads?
Yes. So from it, yes,
So that's
1.2.
For a small, a specific portion of it.
Yeah, correct.
So that,
Yeah, that's 1.2. Yeah. And look, I mean, I'm all for using the money for the roads, and I mean, I've always been a proponent. We even brought that up last year, that 200,000 additional revenue that we were generating, we were allocating it to the comprehensive plan with the intention that going forward subsequent years, those would be road projects, so that we could just float that $200,000 over every year and dedicate that to however many roads we could get done on that road, the road repair list that we gave y'all. So I don't disagree with you. I mean, I definitely agree with you. It's, this is the direction of the council. I just need to know so I know how to plug the numbers in because, it's a puzzle. You're putting the pieces together. You're trying to maintain the same touch and feel of things getting done and the services, but making the numbers match. I mean, it's not just let me, cut here, and I mean, there's a lot that goes into it.
So to the point about spending out of reserves, you all would need to decide let's put the pencil on it. If you want to spend money from reserves to do roads, how much money is that per year that you want to spend? And how long will it take to replenish or to, if you spend $1 million out of it, and then in 2 years, it's going to take us, 10 years, 20 years to replenish that. What would that look like? Can you continue to get ongoing projects done while you maintain reserves as you get bigger and bigger?
But if we had a surplus last year of 601,000, if we did that.
So we didn't have a surplus of 600,000 last year.
No, not last year, this year.
What do we have?
This year, it'll be
This year.
close to 6.
This year.
It'll be close to 6 in reserves.
So that, I mean,
So
this
we
money
just
we can use.
take, yeah, I think we ought to
Okay,
use it.
say it again. You are proposing that we have a $600,000 excess in our...
Estimate, not necessarily all accessible by any means, because there are things built in, like the comp plan that we haven't been paid, that have not been paid yet in its entirety. So those things would have to come out. What I was saying is that if whatever excess is left is where we could come up with this fund, instead of putting it in what
I'm not
we've
following
been.
where you were saying
I don't know where these numbers
$600,000
are coming
excess
from, because
budget.
our,
I don't
our,
know.
from your
I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm
This one.
I'm answering your question with a question because I don't know the answer, because our total budget is $991,000. So to say that 600,000 is surplus, I don't know. I mean, but I also don't
There's your
have it right in
budget
front of me, so I don't
balance
need it through the answer,
That'd be
right?
interesting.
Right.
That's the only actual dates or actual numbers that
Right,
I
so
received.
July,
So your
August.
actual, so you have August, September
So you're saying
left.
that budget that hadn't been spent yet,
Yes.
when we were doing the expenses versus budget update?
Not for the year, that's just as extra at that time.
This is your budget balance remaining. This is y'all's numbers.
As of this day, when we...
Right, so you have 2 more months, and you still have a revenue coming in for 2 more months.
Right, and and like we explained when we gave that, we're still in the process. Like we've had a major conversion, and so we're still inputting. Julie, all 3 of us are still inputting information in. So I think that's going to change drastically as we get things caught up. But I mean, that doesn't deviate from the fact that we have, quite a bit of money in our reserves. I mean, rightfully so. So if you want to take $400,000 from reserves, let me know. I'll plug it in, $400,000, we transfer out of reserves into our revenue. It'll hit the revenue, and I'll balance it out on the roads. Yeah.
That was kind of my suggestion on this form that I had done, in thinking that, again, we're not here to necessarily make a profit every year.
Well, I mean, I brought that up at the last budget meeting, transferring from reserves, and everybody said, no, don't transfer from reserves.
Right, and that was my bad, because I hadn't seen or paid attention much to this sheet when I sat down in my little war room of a living room and laid everything out in front of me. Did he?
That's the
That's
report
the
that we had about
actual balance budget
budget
remaining.
versus actual.
This is the actual, it's only actual
Is there a
number.
number, is there a
Page number 10.
They don't have budget versus actual?
No, we don't.
No, this is the only one I could find to it, so maybe not, I can budget for that.
Can you find one out? Budget versus-
Anyway,
Sorry, we've gone.
that's okay, but since you guys had 0 input about any of these items at the last meeting, I'm trying to figure out the best way to reconcile that into what we have prepared and keep the meeting moving forward while taking into account the items that are important to you.
You're gonna have to have another budget workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one scheduled, do we not?
No, the
No.
next meeting is when you approve.
Last meeting was our workshop today. We were going to present the budget written as the way you all agreed to it last time, including the tax rate that we talked about, and y'all said 37 cents was acceptable.
Burns, can I ask you
No,
what,
I
so,
don't think we did.
You did. But so now we'll just need to take this
Yeah, you did.
I am
and
perfectly fine giving 500 a year to my city of Simonton, because even with the .44, I went from 300 a year to 500 a year. Whoop-de-doo.
Hey, Christie.
I know.
But now, so tell you what, Burns
Yes, Jim.
and Courtney, if y'all would be willing, outside of council, let's take what you guys have both contributed today, try to put it into the budget, and we'll bring that all back to another budget workshop.
Okay.
Sorry, Miss Erica.
So, I don't mean to put a rush on this,
Yeah,
but you've got to publish proposed tax rate by like August 7th.
Wow.
Okay?
No, we're not, we just have to publish it. We're not required to have a public hearing. It just has
No,
to
we
be
don't have,
published.
but it has to be published. It has to be published, yeah.
It's Monday. Okay, any other suggestions of how to reconcile all this together?
I mean,
Well, the previous budget workshop, we just took away what council said and used that, so it's just a little bit of a curveball today, or a huge one. So we just need to figure out what that middle ground is and how to put these things in together.
So I'm going to tell you this. So it says by August 7th or as soon as practicable. So it gives you a little leeway, but like not much because you have to have it published for so many times before you're going in
Twice.
to approve the proposed tax rate. So like you have to have another budget workshop next week. So.
So before we leave today, we need to decide what that date is. Everybody can say when they're available.
If you could give me a tentative tax rate so that I can start building in, that would be helpful, because this waiting weeks, and then, first, you want 20 cents is what you want? What's your, like, let's negotiate. What's your rate?
I'll go 22.
22, okay.
So the projection of housing, I mean, you take that all into account already, because I know that that's your, part of your business. What, appraisals for the next 12 months and tax
What do I think?
expenditures and stuff like that? I mean,
What do I
there are lots of
think?
forecasting out there. Are you taking that into account with your 20-cent proposal?
Yeah, if you want to know what I mean, I don't have a crystal ball.
None of us
but
do.
I'm in the business.
I just didn't know if you already considered that in your
Yeah.
20-cent numbers.
Watched this for years, you know, property valuations. They don't go down as fast as they go up, sorry, they're gonna be up.
Right.
And
You don't see any
I can
flattening.
tell you that trying to negotiate with Portland County Appraisal District now, where you used to could do it, forget it.
Right.
I mean, good luck, you're gonna try. They're out to get the money, they're out to get the valuations, and as long as they can support them in any way, they're gonna do it. I mean, that's just what I see in the business. So do I think they're gonna go down drastically in the next year? No.
Right. And how about sales tax? I mean, we're seeing a slowing in
I don't have
that?
any clue on that. That's not something.
Okay. Other council members, do you have a rate in mind that you want us to
I
target?
get it.
Justin? No? Faye?
I'll
You just-
go with the .22. I thought he had a lot of good points.
Courtney, you said 27?
This particular, and again, it's very fluid, we can move it from bucket to bucket, change it around if we don't need it in certain ones. I didn't mess with a lot of them.
I'm talking about the tax rate.
This works out to 27 and a half, yes, ma'am. With the current 114 and the
Kelly?
whole 9 yards, so nothing changes on their side.
Okay.
Based on the numbers that Jennifer has provided, I would prefer to go with that tax rate. So what was it, between
39?
37 and 39, whatever it was.
Yes. Okay. Did anybody, one more time, does anybody have specific items you wanted in or out of the budget? Courtney is the only one who's provided something, but now you told me you want, there's a tax rate you want to target. Anything else, in or out?
She brought it up, I don't know if I need
Okay.
to tell you this part right now, but she had mentioned that I would bring up again that I am interested, I think, well, I'll let him answer, in taking what reserves we do have from this year and working that into our road budget. There's one time, I'll start with it.
Okay, did you have something else?
No, I would prefer a lower tax rate, and because I'm like of a mind that Vern said, that I don't think that we need to be holding money. So, and I like the idea of putting some excess towards roads, because that's definitely something that we need. But I haven't had a chance to go through Courtney's. I'd really like between now and then to see what she's got and look at
Since we're gonna be on a deadline, I'm gonna really need y'all to start providing feedback if you have additional things prior to the budget, so that if it's something we can include, we'll go ahead and already have that ready, because we are now at the clock is ticking.
Okay. So are you saying that we should notify you, tell you, or tell you after the budget meeting?
If anything you have prepared and ready before the budget meeting, you email it to me, call me, text me, whatever you got. That way I can be sure, because I have no one who's an expert here to help me with this until after Friday.
Okay.
So by noon Friday, this is the Laurie and Julie show happening over here, and we'll need to be as prepared as we possibly can before then, with Jennifer available to help.
So are we having a meeting next Tuesday?
I don't have the proper calendar. What?
Lori, August 8th is next Tuesday, and I will not be available. I have back to school.
How about Monday?
Monday's
Can y'all
the
do Monday?
CPAC.
Oh, it is the CPAC meeting.
Thanks.
Wednesday's the 9th.
And I also have back to school on the 10th, so I will not be available.
Let's just do it on Tuesday, and we'll see if we can't get a volunteer from another city to come help us, at least.
We'll have, and Justin can come. Justin can help.
Okay, so next Tuesday will be our budget workshop. We've got to walk out of there with a budget ready to go, so that we can then finalize or start the process with our tax rate.
6:30 start time.
Yes. Can y'all make 6 o'clock?
Tuesday, 6.
Let's start at 6 o'clock, so we'll have a little longer and not be all night long. Okay. All right, back to our regular agenda. Item 5, consider and take action on items on the consent agenda. I have one item that I want to pull from the consent. That's item C, the certified tax roll. We might not need to do that, but
We already explained it.
since we've already explained it. Does anybody have other questions about that? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. The motion carries. New business, consider and take action to approve the purchase of a new utility trailer for the storage and transport of 16 hoses and couplings for the city's emergency management pumps. You have in your packet multiple bids for that. Justin, do you want to explain or give any recommendations, since I know you've been working on some of that?
So these are the quotes to replace the trailer with the trailer that is designed and heavy enough to maintain the load. The current one we have is really not safe for the amount of load we have on there. If you've ever seen it, it's, with the way it show how much over it is, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it is over capacity, it's dangerous. So this is a trailer that will maintain and allow us to move the pumps and the equipment that the city has without damage to the equipment or damage to the body. And that's the reason behind the trailer. This has actually been going on for a couple of years to get the specs right, what it would take. And so these are the quotes from different vendors for trailers, commercial vendors.
And does emergency management have a recommendation of which one of these bids is best?
Let's see, their page number on it. The Rocket S was the recommended. It has the extra, it has a heavier jack on it, so with all the weight being in front of the trailer, it's not as hard to get on and off in an emergency.
Did you say that was North Texas?
It was through North Texas and the brand was Rocket S, yes.
Okay, so council, that would be in 6A. You might be on page 2.
This is Rockin' S.
Northern, I think this is what he's talking about.
I thought he said Rockin'.
This is the breakdown of the options.
Okay, so that is.
From them for this trailer.
John, the first page from North Texas Trailer, this is the exact trailer. And then the following page, which is also 6A, gives all of the breakdown of the options that will be on the trailer.
The specs.
It's $6,285.28.
What you said.
This is the breakdown for this one.
Got it.
There's no distribution, there's no manufacturer.
Did y'all hear that? The second page here is the breakdown for this first page.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we, is it the North Texas trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, that we accept that bid, and it's $62.85.28.
63.
Huh?
It's 63.92 and 40 cents.
Oh, it's the balance or amount financed down at the bottom of the agreement.
That's more.
Total cost.
Yeah, on this first page, it says 62.
There's another one back here.
That's the number.
They quoted to.
You get the right
Our
one.
better
That's
be
one.
accurate.
They gave us a discount of $319, that's why it's less than that.
So Justin, which one is it? Is it
It's
this
the
one?
same one.
It's the same one.
Yep, the bottom number,
I said it
6285.28.
right.
Yep.
They gave us a discount, that's why it's less than the number
Oh,
at the
okay.
top of the page.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's the motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B,
I should have asked, when are we expecting?
consider and take action to approve the purchase of 8 replacement hoses for the city's emergency management pumps. We have talked about this previously as well. This is the hoses over time degrade. We've looked into reconditioning, refurbishing, replacing just the ends. They have gone every method that you can imagine to try and figure out a best way to handle this. They've got 3 bids here. Justin, do you want to speak to this one or back to Erica?
Either way, I can give the breakdown what they're for. If anybody has specific questions on them. The failing hoses that will not work, they're breaking down from UV degradation on them.
Just was one of these bids the recommended? Is it Midwest?
My recommendation would be Midwest. They've been in the Houston area, they're known, they supply a lot of them, they're very reputable. If there were any issues, if there were, they would take care of it.
And do we know how long it would take to get them?
It's on there, I can't remember.
These are 8-inch diameter, 15-foot long, and rated for our locks, right?
Correct, these were made with our connections on. The Bauer is the connection for our pumps, so they match ours to the letter.
Perfect. And that amount is $8,400. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Can we be told when these, a lot of times we okay something and then we don't know when it's delivered? I'd really like to know when we get them.
Okay. Sure. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, item carries. Thank you. On to reports. Erica or Jennifer, do y'all have anything else you haven't discussed already? Okay, the reports are just very general that I have on my list. Flock came and removed the camera at our request that had been, the pole was hit over by rovers. They wanted to charge us to replace it, so we just went in and had them remove it. It's gone, we don't have to worry about that. Flock, I know that we talked about this at our last update, there's really been no change. They are still working on the approval through DPS after they changed their requirements. It's been resubmitted and now we wait for DPS and just continue to send reminders and prompts about that. Jennifer has continued to work every single day, including both days on the weekend the last 2 weeks, helping us finish out our audit, which has actually turned into almost forensic audits because Sanderson, who the city has used previously, did such a, I'm going to call it a different kind of job.
Terrible.
Okay, terrible, she said, and I didn't. It is not all that thorough. It's been a whole lot of going back and recreating, even though we'd already paid for some previous audit work to be done, so that it is continuous and you can see the flow all the way through. So it has been really labor intense. She's been working on this for months and months and with extra effort in order to get that completed before she needs to leave. And our goal is to present that in August at a regular council meeting. So just an update on that. Erica has been creating all of the contact lists, helping Julie and I get passwords, training, all the things we need to be able to continue to function for the basic needs of the city. So we've got lots of projects that are coming to conclusion. Our software for agendas and minutes and all those things we've told you about previously, that training is going on now. They've accelerated it at our request in order to help us get as much through that as we can before the end of this week. There will be more training before it can be 100% live, but hopefully we can get that rolling, at least to run in parallel within a month. So we'll keep you posted about that. Grants are at their same stage, but the Granicus, Langford, thank you. Langford is continuing on. They know about the changes. All of the companies and vendors that we work with are aware of changes coming up in personnel. So we'll keep a finger on the pulse and they'll help us stay on top of the grant opportunities that are coming up and make sure we don't miss, hopefully, any deadlines for the road grant that will, when it changes from low or moderate income to immediate need, urgent need. And that's what I had for reports. Council members, anyone have a report?
I just have one quick one. It kind of goes back to what Christy was saying about the DSL. So last Thursday at the Fort Bend Mayor and Councils Association dinner, they had a gentleman there by the name of Charles Stein. He said to tell you ladies hello. It was brought to our attention at that meeting. Faith and I were both there, but it was brought to our attention by him that there were some questionable figures as far as how much of that money was going to be allocated to Fort Bend County, much less Fulshire and Simonton. He was going to, actually Aaron from Fulshire brought it up, and it was quite silence in the room because you're standing in the middle of a room full of Fort Bend County people, and that monetary value was questionable. So he did say he was going to send me a map. Once it was updated, it was supposed to have been updated, I think, in a couple of weeks. He was going to send me the actual map of the actual budgeted dollars for like Simonton versus what's available for the areas of the city. So it was a very informative chat. It was very cool.
I think that award for a vendor is still supposed to be concluded in September. Yeah, so there'll be more about that as we move along. Okay, so we have one more thing that's not on the agenda, but we have some really super dedicated folks that have done so many good things for us. We are going to have just a moment of appreciation for Erica and Jennifer. And there's no guarantee there won't be tears, so whoever.
There's only been lots of t-shirts.
I would like to just make sure everybody is aware, and maybe you've heard it 10 times, or maybe not at all, but the city of Simonton is stronger and in a more prepared position than we have ever been. Erica's dedication over the last 7 years, Jennifer's been with us for 5, and just a few of the things that we've accomplished because of their expertise and their dedication are, we're more financially strong. We are making money with our money, taking the money that was just in CDs or other non-yielding investments and investing that in CDARS and accounts that are specifically set up for municipalities so that it's managed properly in a way that's acceptable for municipalities, but also growing when other types of accounts weren't paying anything. So making money with our money has been really critical for us. And the reason we have all those reserves is because of Jennifer work ethic. Drainage, she mentioned a little while ago, because of Jennifer's hard work going out there and applying for grants that, by the way, the city had previously passed on because we couldn't administer those ourselves. She went out and got those grants awarded, and we were able to complete a 10-year drainage project in less than 2 years. Again, been on the books for 20 years before that happened. And that's helping every single person who lives in Valley Lodge. Valley Lodge is not the only part of the city, but certainly it gets the most attention. The most people live there. So this big chunk of money and expertise to execute the projects, couldn't have done that without their help. We are more professional in our relationships. They have done I can't even come up with the word. They have spent so much time building the relationships, repairing relationships, expanding relationships with other parts of our county, other cities, Fort Bend Road and Bridge. They always took good care of us. You've never seen them take care of us and do the things that they've done since they've worked so hard to include them in our planning, ask them questions when we're doing a project, making sure that information is flowing both ways, that we just don't call and ask for something from different entities in the county. We have lots of respect that we've earned over these last years because they've put in the time, the effort to build those relationships and maintain them and offer things. So when other cities need something, we don't have a ton of resources, but we have more emergency equipment than anybody in the county. When it comes to moving water, we've offered them our pumps, our expertise, our volunteers. So it's good to be able to give back, and they know that they could ask us and we would show up. We can ask them and they will show up. Permitting and review, we did permits before, but I tell you what, Erica Molina was on the job about 5 minutes before we flooded in 2016, and she went in like a powerhouse and took over that permitting process. She was kind to every single resident who came in. She helped people get their FEMA money so that they could elevate their house or apply for demolition. All kinds of things that are extra that you don't get that in other cities because they don't have time for it or they're not personally invested. We got that here and it's been amazing. We have a process and it is easy and not cumbersome on the residents or builders. She did an outstanding job of expanding and improving our records retention. As we've gotten bigger and records have been more types of records, there's more electronic, there's everything that you see on our social media has to be electronically archived. You have to go back and be able to find it just like that anytime there's a request or if there was an issue. That doesn't just happen. Somebody really smart and on their game has to be paying attention and learning about all the technologies to help us make that so. She's also upgraded our emergency management by having routine meetings with the team, taking their input, making sure that the board is always full. If somebody needs to leave, that vacancy doesn't just sit. They practice, they drill, they do training, and they've been maintaining our pumps. Eric and Jennifer both helped us find a professional response contract so that we don't have to own 10 pumps. We don't have to go begging Vulcan for, do you have a pump? It's an emergency, we need it right now. We don't know if it's gonna work. We patched it together for a long, long time. We did a fine job with that. Saved a lot of people's homes and the near miss floods. But having a company that we can call and say, the forecast says this, here's what we're expecting. They give us first right of refusal anytime there's a big weather event coming. And they've got people to come out, they set them up, they bring the equipment. We don't have to piecemeal it together. We would have never done that if they didn't know about this as an option and help us create that contract for the city. We've talked about it a lot. Conversion to municipal accounting has been painful, but amazing. It's really good for the city. It makes us more healthy. It makes it so that every single person can find out where every dollar is going. It doesn't just go into general and our money gets deposited. We don't exactly remember, oh yeah, $500,000 of that was a grant. We spent it. Oops. Now that we have to administer the grant, we got to pull that money from reserves. None of that is happening anymore, but it is the way it was that we were managed earlier because we weren't at this stage. We weren't ready yet. Well, we converted from QuickBooks to municipal accounting. That also helps us create professional budgeting where you can see where every dollar is going to go, where every dollar was spent, how much money was spent versus budget, all the things we've been talking about. That happens because Jennifer helped us convert to municipal accounting and budgeting. That's professional. It's not, we don't have to be small town and not know where our money is. We can be small town and know exactly where it is and we can show it to anybody any day. We talked about grant administration. The first 2 years, for sure the first year, the amount of money that we spent for Jennifer's salary was less than, but close, to the amount of money that we would have had to pay out from our first grant to have it professionally administered. So let's say that was $80,000 that first year. Well, that meant we had miles of road that could have its drainage done. It wouldn't have been included, but we'd had to spend it on our administrator. I'm not saying having administration is bad, but Jennifer walked in here the first day and figured out how to do that and made all the contacts to help us. So she saved the city that money that very first year. They coordinated what we previously thought was impossible, is getting the log jam at the bridge right down here at 1093 and the Brazos River cleaned out twice. I think it's 7 entities that are involved in making that happen, and nobody really talks to each other, and it takes forever to get them all on a call together before you even talk about costing $4 million to clean the thing out. So they made that happen twice, which makes us more stable because we're not worrying that the pressure from all of that buildup down there is going to take the bridge down, and then we have no egress to the west. They upgraded our website from, well, we looked really small town before, and we didn't have a really good way to put lots of information on there so that the public could go and get whatever they wanted or ask questions about. The website has completely changed with ongoing improvements every single year, including right now where you could go before any meeting and see all of the supportive documents the council is getting. You could see that before you come here. That wasn't available before because we didn't have options, but it's one of those upgrades that we've continued to add year after year. And encouraging community engagement has really been a big thing. They worked really hard with the volunteers that wanted to keep Simonton beautiful. They were able to create the entity. We're part of the state program. So it's not just, once upon a time, the Simonton Beautification Committee was a bunch of volunteers. We made ourselves a committee. We did all the votes and created a bank account and did fundraising in order to do new landscape at the post office or here at City Hall. Well, now it's a umbrella. It has an umbrella, the state and the city. It's well organized. They have some resources to help the committee with, but it also has been a really good avenue for outreach. So the Simonton roundups that you see spring and fall, that is strictly to reach out to the community, to provide professional folks over from the nursery, in Richmond, and come down and tell us about best plants to put in your yard if you want native, or to have kid events. Every kid liked to come last time and jump on the bouncy house and pet the animals. I know that doesn't sound like a city function, it's not, but the city is a sponsor, and that group generates their own money. They get to use the umbrella of Keep Texas Beautiful, and they're creating really great outreach out there that people in Simonton and from out of Simonton seem to really appreciate, because they come and the crowd gets bigger every single time. That's just something about giving back. So these are a few things that I had on my list. There are many more, but these are important to Simonton, and that's what sets us apart from every other small town or any other small town. We might still be under 1,000 people, but we don't have to act like it, and all of these things help us be prepared for the future that's coming. The growth is coming here, whether we would like it to stay tiny or not. So let's be prepared, let's be professional, and let's be able to account for everything we do so that it's easy then to ask for permission to grow. And with that, I have a little certificate of appreciation, one each for Erica and Jennifer, on behalf of the mayor and council. I'll ask you to come up in a second. And we would like to give you a parting gift so that you remember where you came from, Simonton, Texas. This is where the tears might be. I'll try to keep it together. Thank you for your exceptional work and dedication through your years of service. Your leadership and compassion have made Simonton healthier, stronger, and prepared for our future. No. As you move into the next amazing chapter of your life, know that you will be missed and that our very best thoughts go with you on your next adventure. And we will never forget your professional expertise, mentorship, and your friendship. Our best wishes go with you. Come back to visit, maybe we'll have better chairs.
There's room in the budget.
All right. And with that, 8:27. It's the chairs. At 8:27, and our meeting is adjourned.
I better increase that budget for new chairs.
Yeah, we're gonna put that.
It's in the budget. We're going to this year.